Now the layout of the game is around a table. So each position or players go around the table with the banker on the one side. Ideally, if one has 3 tables, which can be placed in a U shape with the banker on the open side of the U, it'll just allow easy access for the banker to each individual player, other than around a single table where the banker has to lean over the shoulder of a specific player to help. But either or, it can be done. There are a maximum of 6 positions or 6 boards for players, and there can be a maximum of 2 players per board. 1 is enough, but it is nice to play 2 people. Now these 2 people will be playing as a single person, as in the game one can get married. Playing 2 people at one board does not signify that they are married, but rather than that they are starting the game as a single person. Playing 2 people together just decreases the workload, whereas one can do the calculations and another one can do the future planning, or vice versa. This is very nice to play for couples, to see how they interact with each other and how they take the game, how they do their planning, etc. and so on. Now, next, let's look at the individual components that each player needs before we can start the game. Now, let's take a look at the individual components that we have to prepare before the start of the game. Firstly, we have the main component, which is the life chart. The life chart is the basis of what you own. You will see that there are different categories that will basically sum up the total life that you have, and what you will buy and sell will be noted on these. For example, you will have a family category, a career, and we will look at the career cards a bit later. That will be obtained from the banker. Transport, housing, sowing and giving, trusts, businesses, insurance, shares, and loans. So if we buy something, we will note it on these papers. These small little papers will have to be cut out before the start of the game, so that players can write on them and not on the board, so that we can continually play with the same boards. All the information that is on this will be on this chart, except for your Moneywise cash flow sheet. The cash flow sheet will be your bank account. As there are no real cash values in the game, you will note everything that you buy date, the transaction amount, and a balance. It is the responsibility of each player to know exactly where his finances are and how much he has to use. Then, for each player, there is also life cards, which will be drawn at the beginning of the game. These life cards are things that are unplanned in your life. So basically, something that you were not planning to do. Something broke, you bought something that was just a nice to have, and now it is an expense. 2 of these cards before every round will be drawn. Then we have the player guide. The player guide is basically the same as the banker's guide, except that it only contains the rules and not any tips on the playing of the game. Each player will also need a calculator, which is provided in the game, and a pen or pencil, which each player has to bring along. Other information that we will use for each player is the Moneywise career sheet. Let's just take a quick summary at what is on the career sheet. First, we can see the career column over here. We see that we have the careers listed from cashier all the way down to doctor. Next, we see the career fee. Let's take a general example of arts and crafts, number 6. The career fee is 10,000. Your career fee will be the amount that you need to pay to obtain this career. This will be like your tuition fees. Next, we see salary is 100%. This 100%, as with all other percentages, refer back to the career fee. We see 100% of 10,000, so your salary will be 10,000 on a round basis. Next, we see your life expenses. These are general expenses such as your toiletries, your food, your fuel, etc. That is 10% again of our career fee, which is 1,000. Our tax is 21%, and again it's just a general example in the game, and that will be 21% of 10,000. So we can see that that will be 2,100. Our monthly cost is our life expenses plus our taxes combined in an actual amount, which we see 21% and 10% gives us 31% of 10,000, which is 3,100 for our monthly cost. Our net pay is our total salary, 100% of 10,000, and deducting our monthly cost, 3,100, we see we have 6,900. so that it is easier to calculate. We then say we have a marriage fee, children, and bursary, which all refer back to the career fee. Information for these can be obtained in the player's guide. Next, let's take a look at our transport. We see that we have transport listed. What type of transport? When you buy it second hand, if you buy it new. We see the minimum amount of people required for a specific vehicle. So let's, for example, say that we are a couple. We see that we must drive at least a light passenger. If we have 3 to 4 children, we at least have to drive a minibus. And then we can look at prices, and the rules will be in the player's guide. We take this further, we look at our housing, to rent or to buy. Now again, we can see these lines run straight through. For a couple, we will need at least a 1-bedroom flat. For 3 to 4 children, we will need at least a 3-bedroom house. On the bottom left-hand corner, we can see our yearly rounds, at which we will take a closer look during our next session. And the bottom right-hand corner, we see our insurance, which we will take a closer look at a bit later on as well. Now, let's take a look at the Moneywise monthly income sheet. We can see this form is divided into 4 basic parts. This form will help us to note all our incomes, all our expenses, which will give us a monthly amount that will pay out to us. But we'll look at this in a further round. Also, at the bottom of our monthly income sheet, we can see our goals. So, we will look at them as well in the next round. Next, we will take a look at our Moneywise consolidation chart. This will only be handed to players at the end of the game and is not part of the preparation for the beginning of the game. This is rather self-explanatory and will basically be a summary of what the person or the player has achieved during the course of the game, worked back to a financial value. So that can be handed to the player once the game has ended, and each player will fill it in and hand it back to the banker. Those are the components that need to be prepared before the start of each game for every player. The position of these components relative to each other is not that significant, as each player will move them around according to their setup and how they like to play the game. Now let's look at the time frame of a game. A game typically takes 6 hours if we include an hour's lunch in between, which is a nice break as it is quite a long time to sit, and it is a nice way of refreshing to have lunch in between. And it's also a very nice way to get interaction between the players. During the course of the game, it is also very nice to have snacks packed out on the table, just because of the duration of the game, and it's nice to have something to chew on. Next, we will be looking at playing an actual round in the game.